My next guest is a brilliant political satirist who has never followed a tuba player standing on his head before, but could have followed the contortionist from a few weeks ago, you know. His specials on PBS are now in their 11th season. He's the kind of guy who likes to call himself Buffalo's finest export since Millard Fillmore, if you know who he is. He was a president. Please welcome the brilliant Mark Russell. Mark.
I saw the tuba play. He was at the airport going through the metal detector, and you talk about a time, I'll tell you that. Well, good evening. I am not Paul Simon. This just in, we have a late bulletin. From New York City, terrorists have detonated a device which has completely destroyed the New York Stock Exchange. Economists have described it as a slight correction. Now, that didn't happen. At least while we were taping this, it didn't happen, but it's not too far-fetched. I mean, there is a thin line between the satire and the original event. For example, a few months ago, a reporter asked President Reagan, he said, "Mr. President, did William Casey carry on covert operations without you knowing about it?" And Reagan answered, "Not to my knowledge." It's an exact quote. Very, very thin line. For example, last May, when Gary Hart's campaign was waylaid, wrong word, when Gary Hart had to get out of the race. Now, the issue was adultery, but don't you think in the case of George Bush, adultery could only help? Think about it. A very, very thin line. For example, if I told you that last January, Jimmy the Greek was fired by CBS, you would say, well, we already knew that. But what if I told you the next day he started working as a speechwriter for Arizona Governor Evan Meekum? Then what would you say? See that? Very, very thin line. The lowest point in President Reagan's administration was the Iran-Gate story. And it started a year ago last November, and initially they all stonewalled. Nobody knew anything about it. Reagan didn't know about it. Reagan didn't know about it. Reagan found out about it from Bryant Gumbel. So then Reagan fired Reagan, and a lot of people thought that Nancy Reagan had a lot to do with that, and that opened up a lot of speculation about how powerful Nancy Reagan is in the White House. And of course, such speculation is as old as the Republic itself. We've always had this guessing about how powerful first ladies are. For all we know, Lincoln's Gettysburg Address might have originated as pillow talk. Fourscore, Abe? Not tonight, Mary, I have a headache. Well, the Iran story dominates the political campaign that we are undergoing now. You have Bob Dole, and he can be nasty. Dole, dirty things, sneaking up behind Bush, humming the Iranian national anthem. All right, now, how many of you saw the Dan Rather interview with George Bush some time ago? All right. Now, that is a key part of the campaign. It really is. And you remember what Bush said afterwards? I mean, you know, Rather asked about Iran, and he really didn't answer it. And the next day, Bush said, well, it was a lot like combat. Now, can you imagine George Bush was a Navy pilot in World War II? You imagine his commanding officer, you think World War II is rough? Wait till they invent the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather. There, here we are. Shame, oh shame on you, Dan Rather, for instigating a fight. You ought to be sued for being ornery and rude. Where'd you learn to be so impolite? Well, let me tell you something, Dan, you crossed over the line, and we say to you for shame. If George Bush becomes our next president, then we'll know who to blame. Well, you call yourself a journalist if that's what in fact you are. I don't give you the chance to make Bush look good. You ought to be feathered and tarred. It'll trace right back to you, Dan. If once again the Democrats lose and Bush should win in November, you should be lynched on the 6 o'clock news. Well, do us all a favor, Dan. Keep the question to yourself, that's all. Because even though it never got answered, that's not what the people recall. All they remember is Macho Dan, and it isn't worth the price. Let the question be asked by Peter Jennings. He's cultured, he's mannered, he's nice. Let the question be asked by Peter Jennings. He's cultured, he's mannered, double-breasted blazer, he's nice. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, gang. Wow, nice. Thank you very much. Thank you.
That's fantastic.
20 years, I have documented evidence. Whenever an interviewer asks me who my favorite comedian is, I say Robert Klein. I really do.
Nice.
I really do. Actually, it's a toss-up. For real laughs, it's a toss-up between Robert Klein and Ed Meese, I would have to say.
He may have to resign. And actually, by the time we're speaking here in a couple of weeks, he may have resigned.
Well, with all of his legal problems, he may either resign or he could run for president of the Teamsters Union. I'm not too sure.
He is a lawyer, but I suggest he run to Jacoby and Myers as quickly as possible. Mark Russell, I heard that you had a really unusual gig, which I'm sure I could never play, the CIA.
There's a theater at the CIA. It seats 300 people, and there honestly is a little spinet piano, which they do God knows what with. I asked somebody, I said, what do you do? He said, we have Christmas carols, the CIA. Hark the herald angels sing, bomb the harbors in the spring. Waste the Nicaraguan nation, bring Ortega to castrate. Anyway, so I got a letter, this is about a year and a half ago, I got a letter from William Casey himself. And they said, we have a speakers program, and we have diversity, we have Art Buchwald. So I called Art, I said, is this on the level? He said, yeah. And I said, no problem, they don't care what you say. So I was impressed with that. So they told me how Casey was going to introduce me. So I had an answer. In other words, I didn't want you to think that I'm that good an ad libber. They said he's going to get up, he's going to say that Mark Russell's presence here should prove that the CIA has a sense of humor. So I knew he was going to say that. So we go in from the back of the theater, and it's noontime, and all the CIA employees are on their lunch hour. And when we walked in from the back, it reminded me of parochial school because they all stood up real fast. Oh, Father Casey's in the building, you know, like that. And so they all stood up. So Casey got up and he said what they said. He said, Mark Russell here should prove that the CIA has a sense of humor. So I got up. I said, Mr. Casey, we've known that since the Bay of Pigs. And I said, and about a month later, I got audited.
Well, is it just like a job to them? I mean, I guess anything unusual? Were they taking each other's fingerprints during lunch?
It's very wholesome. It almost looked as if they rented people who looked less like any stereotype you can imagine. And many of them, their neighbors think they work in the rug department at Sears. I mean, they do not know. And originally with the CIA, the spouses thought, you know, these guys that come home complaining about what a rough day they had at the rug department at Sears, he says, don't hand me that. I saw you this morning at Good Morning America, scuba diving off Managua. See? So,
that is a weird job. Who is there any favorite of yours satirically? Your point of view is different from the average voter, because your vote, what do we have, a loudspeaker there from the, I think the CIA is interfering. I heard, hello, camera 2. I think we don't have our camera 2. I think we skipped 2. We went right to 3 and 4. Who is the candidate that presents the most satirical opportunity?
Other than Pat Robertson, you mean?
No, I'm counting Pat. Oh, that's right, he is a candidate.
See, well, with Robertson, he said, well, I'm no longer a clergyman. I'm a businessman now. And what better way to turn a profit than to ask people to mail you money? But Robertson, when we did that humor seminar with Jerry Ford last year, we were all unanimously...
Which is a contradiction in terms, sort of.
We were... See, if Robertson got in, it wouldn't matter to me because I'd be living in Canada by then anyway. But as our friend Mort Saul said, elect Al Haig, let's get it over with.
It was funny seeing Mort there, too. Things come 360 degrees, don't they? I mean, whatever. Mort Saul was there pretty much as a registered Republican.
And Gerald Ford introduced him. I mean, if 20 years ago you thought...
It was a seminar on humor and the presidency. We don't have a stool for you, but you requested no stool. Would you do another thing for us?
Only if you'll accompany me.
Mark! So far, the tuba player and Mark
Yeah,
Russell, the great satirist, I'm joining in everything.
I hate playing right side up like this, don't you?
Where should I stand? Is this all right,
Right
Michael?
This kind of a funky blues. This is about that television show. Well, I'll do. Can you do that? That's an F. Right there. Show Tour of Duty. It's on opposite Bill Cosby, and it's about Vietnam. I figure they're going to lose the war this time around as well. Henry Kissinger watched Tour of Duty and promised the actors that they'd be home by Christmas. Load up your rifle, put on your pack. You better take cover, we're under attack. They've ambushed the living room, they're fragging the den. Vietnam's back again. Call out the medic, I'm wounded right here. Crawl to the kitchen and get another beer. The unpopular war is not the news this time. Vietnam's gone prime time, B-flats. A network executive under stress set fire to himself in front of CBS. He said we thought we could win the ratings show. General Westmoreland told us so. All over the screen, the bodies are cluttered. How do you like your popcorn, plain or buttered? Madam New Girl, where you been? Vietnam's back again. It's family entertainment on the DMZ. This time around the enemy's NBC. Hey, LBJ, how you gonna blow Bill Cosby away? So turn on the tube and let the war begin. This time I hope they get some writers who will let us win. The war starts at 8, the surrender's at 10. Vietnam's back again. Vietnam, back again. Yeah.